Qantas flight from Auckland to Sydney has issued a mayday call after reported engine failure. It's believed flight QF144 was scheduled to arrive at 3:25 p.m. and is off the coast. New South Wales Ambulance is on standby. These are just initial reports. We're chasing more details. It seems fire and ambulance and police are on the way, but as a precaution. So as soon as we have more, we'll bring that to you. But joining us on the line now is Neil Hansford, an aviation expert and chair of Strategic Aviation Solutions. Neil, thanks for joining us. Talk us through what this means, because my understanding is it doesn't necessarily mean the plane will crash. They have more than one engine, as I understand it, but this isn't. There've been a couple of times now this year. There was a similar incident in Perth in July where we had this sort of engine failure and a mayday call.
No, what has happened is the crew have got a condition that's not normal, so they have obviously issued a mayday, which means that all the emergency services are assembled at Sydney Airport. Other traffic is diverted away to give the aircraft a clear approach into Sydney. I think it's probably about 15 minutes away if it's on schedule. It might be running slower now that if it is in fact been on one engine, but the aircraft flies perfectly well on one engine because they have to have this ability to fly on one engine for two-engine aircraft to fly over water, and often that 60 and 90 minute and up to 2 hours away from the coast. So yes, the procedures are in place. Yes, everything is in preparedness, but that doesn't mean in any way that the aircraft has an imminent chance of crashing.
Because, of course, a mayday call occurs if there's grave and imminent danger. So I spoke about that incident in Perth earlier this year. How often does this occur? How often are emergency services scrambled because one of the two engine fails and in this sort of precautionary area?
Not very much in this country, and as you say, the Perth is the last one. But certainly we always err on the side of caution to make sure that all the facilities are in place to maintain life and have the best outcome. So the fact that the fire brigade and the airport services and New South Wales Ambulance are in preparation, they practice this drill very regularly, and the word mayday is often unused. I doubt whether the captain called mayday, 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 but yes, it is an emergency procedure and it's being handled in an appropriate way, and the Australian Transport Safety Bureau would also be ready to investigate the circumstances.
Well, what causes this sort of engine failure typically?
Well, the engine failures often at lower altitudes are bird strikes, and I'd imagine this aircraft is certainly at an altitude that bird strikes aren't going to be there. Obviously, you can get component failure within an engine, and you may have a blade detach or something else, but there's been no suggestion that the aircraft has an onboard fire. And as the story is coming through, is that one engine has been shut down. It didn't shut down itself. Right.
So there is also a report, I think, that it was late taking off. Could it be as simple as a maintenance issue?
It could be a lot of other things, but if it had taken off late, it could be a passenger issue or a connecting flight delay. At this stage, it's just too wild to try and speculate what would cause it, but it's still several hours have gone into the flight, and we're only at this stage, probably when this was called, about 30 minutes out from Sydney Airport, so it's certainly in the final phase of flight.
I guess one of the reasons these sorts of things are big news is because of Australia's safety record with passenger aircraft and particularly Qantas's enviable record.
Of course, Qantas has never had a passenger lost on a jet aircraft in its history. So it's got the highest record in the world in this particular situation. And a lot of this can be because of prudence. The crew would be well trained to identify they have a problem, call up for all of the assistance. In some airlines, they would just try and ride with the problem themselves and disguise it for their record. But that's not the Qantas way. And I have to say that what you may well find when the aircraft lands is that it may be prudency rather than an uncontrollable situation.
Neil Hansford, thanks so much for your time.
Always a pleasure.